We are a group of friends, bound by our appreciation for liberty and good podcasting. Free-minded thinkers from all walks of life, our values come together with one accord to discuss the common culture and news of the day, along with whatever random crap is going on in our lives. Welcome to the Union of the Unknowns. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Union of the Unknowns. I'm your host tonight, Keelthor. With me are some unknowns. She's a woman of high sophistication. Ashley, think, change, repeat.
Hello there.
She's a true Sheila from the land down under, StellaQ.
Hey guys, always happy to see you.
And he's the aptly named BigPerm.
Hey, happy to be hanging out with you guys today.
Howdy. Tonight we've got a very special show. We're going to focus on a concept maybe nobody's ever heard of called Communitarianism. I'm not sure exactly what the definition of that is, but we have some special guests here who are experts. Brien and Jenna. Welcome, Brien and Jenna.
Hi, thank you for having us. I can't say that we're experts, but we've been familiar and researching this subject and in communication over a decade now. And including we had communications with Nikki Rapana.
Ah,
okay.
Nikki Rapina, yeah, okay, cool. Where you guys in that same area as she was?
Yeah, I would say that we've been monitoring Jim Lee, and I talk to him on the phone regularly. And when he mentioned StellaQ was his right-hand girl, I looked you up. And when I found out BigPerm was from Seattle, then I contacted Ashley. Ashley, really good job of getting me in touch with BigPerm, and we're here. I would just say that post 9/11 event, I was really curious about my future, and I started going on the internet, and I believe it was probably Jeff Rentz, who's in Oregon, but he's worldwide. He was interviewing Nikki Rapana. I find out she had stumbled upon a pilot project in Seattle.
Which is where Brien grew up. Yeah.
So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. I had to look into something from Seattle because, you know, they talk about the Seattle stare. I mean, this place is cold as ice to people that wanted to go out and interact. There is such a thing as the Seattle stare.
Oh, what is that exactly? The Seattle stare. I've never heard that before.
You can type it in to a search engine. It's basically
people don't talk to each other here. If you're out in public, they just kind of look right past you, and people don't say hello. It's kind of a cold atmosphere in an elevator, and
you guys don't have that southern hospitality that we have down here.
Definitely not.
After a while, you just get used to basically people saying, "Why don't you just buzz off?"
Well, that's not very neighborly.
No. So we are in the Pacific Northwest. We're in Olympia, about 60 miles south of Seattle. And when Brien and myself met, he had already located and identified Nikki Rapana in her blog, which is Living Outside the Dialectic. Mm-hmm. We did get her book, and that would be the Complete Anti-Communitarian Manifesto, and also Our Common Destiny 2020. So I had read that before this COVID started. And we also maintained communications with her on Facebook because she wasn't necessarily good at marketing her information. And that's a point of contention about Rosa Koire gleaming quite a bit of information. However, she omitted some critical information that Nikki was like, you can't leave out the Zionism part. You can't omit the religious aspect of communitarianism. It's not communism, because communism wanted to destroy all religions. Well, communitarianism is actually infiltrated all world religions, and the religious one religion that is central is the Gaia worship and the worship of so the environmentalists also kind of got swooped in. And my personal experience, being originally from Illinois, but when I came to the Pacific Northwest, I loved the forests. I thought it was absolutely amazing temperature, climate, and I actually even got involved in forest activism. And I found myself living in a tree for about 9 months too. And this was 25 years ago. Now, in hindsight, I'm looking back, and even if you go onto Earth First Wiki, they submit to communitarian ideology. So this word is not used very much. It please go ahead.
Can we broadly define it, maybe? Because probably all of our listeners really haven't heard and probably confuse it with communism straight.
Sure.
Just an overall basic on what is this word communitarianism that we're talking about, and then we can get into these facets of how it's kind of bleeding into everything else.
Yeah, if we could just get the balance of communitarianism and anti-communitarianism, just from the get-go.
Yes.
Okay, well, I would say a quick definition that works for me, and Lark in Texas, who's been 15 years hitting the books on what this is all about and has had many interviews. He's fond of, how about just a dictatorship of the community? And go ahead.
Okay. And I would say, how would that possibly be achieved? But if you take crony capitalism, you mix it with government, and then you bring in some soft laws like the PrEP Act, no smoking in public. Like, there's laws that kind of get filtered in, and then it's through shaming, guilt, and knowing how the herd mentality will monitor and police itself is how that is achieved.
And
so that was a long sentence.
But taking it further, in the 50s, the Macy conferences were involved with a Norbert Wiener who had been, figuring out in World War II how to use technology to track a enemy aircraft, and from the ground you have an artillery piece. You need to figure out the distance, all the different calculations in order to hit that airplane. He ends up at the Macy conferences. What are they studying? But a form of governance. So if you know on a lawnmower what a governor is, when you get into the tall grass, the throttle on the carburetor bumps up to deal with the needed torque. Well, just let me finish. So these people are after a way to have the world run by somebody other than them. In other words, you can't go to the Fauci's or Trumpster or whoever. These people aren't accountable. It's the community that is the boogeyman. So when this shaming, but it also is rat out your neighbor, the broken window theory. He has a lot of motorcycles. They're coming at all hours of the night. And when COVID happened, then I'm just imagining a half dozen 20-year-old snot-nosed college kids coming to my mailbox and wanting to know, let's shake you down for your appropriate vaccinations. It's these kind of entities that are going to be governing. End of rant.
So, Nikki would refer to the Hegelian dialectic often. So there's a synthesis that takes place that brings about all isms. So in theory, communitarianism is the synthesis of all isms. From communism to socialism to Marxism to popularism to scientism, mesmerism, all of the isms are theoretically all synthesized into communitarianism. So to be an anti-communitarian would counter this perfect synthesis that they are planning. So by default, us being anti-communitarians, we object. So therefore, it isn't a perfect synthesis. So therefore, we hope to resist what is rolling out and what most of the public is supporting. And another aspect is that the language has been subverted. And I'm sure you're familiar with the ideas of what really is equity or what really is justice. What we feel it would probably be going back to when we learned language. But in these laws, how they're written, they have a double meaning. And Nikki, in her book, she wrote a Big Mother's Double Tongue Dictionary, and she had a list in like a full page of all of these words that she realized, because when she was researching what was happening in Seattle, when she would go to City Hall, Town Council, police stations, trying to figure out what was happening in her neighborhood, and it's in the realm of eminent domain, like where she was renting, her landlord, he's like, the city's out to take my land. And she's like, not in America, it can't. Well, as she further researched, she was seeing that there were books on desks of all of these political bureaucrats that were pushing in this pilot program. And many of them were written by Amitai Etzioni. And that's where the Zionist aspect comes in, because he's the godfather of communitarianism in the United States. And he came from Israel, and I believe
Germany.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on his history?
Sure, briefly.
Sure. Okay. He can do that.
So as an adolescent, he went from Germany. Werner Falk was his name. He went to Palestine, and in 1948, he joined the Palmach, which is a side shoot of the Irgun terrorist organization that wanted to take Palestine back from the Brits. So these terrorists would blow things like the King David Hotel up and on and on. But in 1958, after changing his name to Amitai Etzioni, he went to Berkeley, became a professor, died a few years ago in his 90s, but he advised every president since Jimmy Carter on communitarianism. So it is not surprising to me that nobody is using this word, has no idea what it is, because, you know, if I wanted to take over the world, I'd have a bunch of Patrick Woods saying the end all be all is technocracy. And anybody that ain't following my, speaking engagements, sign up for my newsletter, buy my books, is mistaken. And like sheep, the hundreds of Derek Bros and the list is long. James Corbett interviewed Nikki. Lark called in. I watched James Corbett's face blanch when Lark called. This is all controlled, and it is not a big head scratcher that we are making zero headway. It's just like if I wanted to take over the world, I'd be doing it just like it's going down.
Okay, so we all remember Klaus Schwab from the WEF fame, standing up. I mean, these people are the front man puppets, obviously, but standing up and saying the cabinets have been infiltrated. You know, it's sort of like it's all down to ground level. It has been infiltrated for a very, very long time, many decades. It seems that they have reached ground level now. The tentacles are local. I know that from my own local council and things that are happening here in Australia. It's very much what, I mean, I was watching a little bit of Rosa, just catching up on her blurb last night. And yeah, she's talking about how it's at ground level, and you know, council meetings soon you won't be able to attend your council meeting. There's a bit of an echo there. Somebody's got their thing open. You won't be able to attend council meetings without you know, leaving your name and all that sort of thing. That's happening here. You can't even go and attend some of the council meetings here now in person. You have to do it online. You have to register, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's coming from the WEF places. It's coming from that sort of arena, isn't it? Committee of the UN. It's a UN agenda, obviously. So do you think that it is irreparable at this point? Do you think there is any chance of any pushback for the plan that's being implemented? Because every now and then we hear about solutions, but we still see things being implemented and going forward. So where do you think we stand?
Well, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I believe that people that have no hope and dwell on all of their failures are encouraged to leave. So the people I'm surrounded with are create the barricades. I'm going up and over. I'll tear the barricade down. I'll go around it. Of course, this is not a done deal. But with your permission, since you mentioned Rosa and, you know, BigPerm and I have back and forth on email. He mentioned, oh, I'm reading Rosa's book right now. I'll just read a comment from Nikki Rapana.
Can we
go ahead.
Apologize for interrupting. Can we just briefly, I don't know these names, Rosa Quarry and Nikki Rapana. Can we give like a
Rosa
little
Quarry
background on who these are?
wrote Behind the Green Mask, which was a very broad book, but a lot of her stuff did come from Nikki Rapana, as has already been mentioned. That was the foundation of Rosa's information. I was already aware of Nikki before this, but yeah, please, if you could elaborate.
I'd also like to say one thing that I've gotten from Behind the Green Mask so far is she mentions, I think this was written something like 15 years ago or something, and one of the things I've noticed in my community and other communities I've visited is these multi-use buildings. So with the living spaces up top and businesses on the ground, and I'm seeing them pop up more and more. And this was going on in Santa Rosa when she wrote the book, and she had been basically...
It was published 2011, that book.
Okay, so yeah, almost 15 years ago. And it's I think, been working overtime to put these things everywhere now, and I think it fits that 15-minute city narrative.
15-minute prison.
Right.
Light rail might let you out of there, or it's a long bike ride. So yeah, let me just briefly read this from Nikki, where 4 years ago, some people also from San Francisco called Book of Hours put up a YouTube, a new model communitarianism, and they do indeed expose the nightmare of communitarianism. But at a certain point, Nikki writes this to the authors. I'm Nikki Rapana, the co-author of the Anti-Communitarian Manifesto 2003 and 2020, Our Common Destiny in 2007. While much of our original antithesis is in this video, several important aspects have been removed. It is also a religion, and there are good sources for that aspect. Rosa Quarry is not an expert on the theory, and everything she uses originates from our work. She purposely removed the guru of communitarianism and claims Zionism has nothing to do with it. The guru, Amitai Etzioni, name means Tree of Life from Zion. I appreciate your attempt to expose this, but caution you about using sources whose goal is to lead you away from the whole story. We got this link from one of our readers who recognized our work.
Just hold on just one moment, Brian. We've just lost your audio just for a sec.
When I went in to adjust the sound, I said it wasn't letting me adjust it, so I turned off the automatically adjust mic volume, but it consistently went back up again. Like it wasn't letting me
Okay, that's all right.
make an adjustment. And now
Okay, sorry, I was trying to do that sort of covertly.
Yeah, I was
I
too.
think it's
And
right, okay,
but
we'll
now
just keep
I don't
going.
know if the audio is working or not.
Let's do a quick test, Brian. No, it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Put it back where it was then.
All right, let's try that.
Sorry.
Trying to get fancy here.
Brian, can you try again?
Audio Nazi.
Still not working. I don't know.
Hold on.
So we bring him out and back in again.
Excellent.
Okay, I think we've got him.
There, I got it.
Oh, got it.
All right, beautiful. Please continue. Sorry,
Brian, if
Okay,
Jenna's volume has been perfect, so if you can just not
Just back
lean
off a
into
little
the
bit.
computer when you're speaking, I think
Roger
that
that.
would make it better. Perfect.
Yep.
so I'll just
That's cool.
We certainly appreciate your enthusiasm, though.
Okay, so last couple sentences, we got this link from one of our readers who recognized our work and were dismayed we weren't cited or mentioned. We're so used to being plagiarized and dissed by the alt media. I'm not sure if it even matters if I comment on this, but in case the viewer wants the uncensored version, I am. Thanks and have a good day. And they back and forth in this 4-year-old comment section, but I'm not going to go into anything further. I'm trying to help people understand who Rosa is and who Nikki is. And you were reading, Perm, the book
Behind
Behind the Green Mask, but Nikki on her site wrote up a very big Behind the Green Mask of Rosa Corey, explaining her side of this. But that's why we have courts of law. You get to come in and tell your side of it, but whoever is being accused also gets a chance. And of course, Rosa is probably gone on to the happy hunting ground, and
as well.
And Nikki rumored to have as
Right.
well. So we can't talk for either of them, but this is a little bit of a beef they had going.
Yeah, okay, let's just sort of elaborate on what you just said there. So they have both passed on. From my understanding, they both left us. I believe Rosa died from lung cancer, did she not? In around, I can't remember, 2018 or something, wasn't it? 2017 or something?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years before COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I'm not sure when Nikki passed away, but what I want to know, I want to dig a little bit there. Are you alluding to the fact that may not be the case? Or
Well,
to the suggestion, I should say, that may not be the case.
Rumor has it, how about if I said I'm not really big into looking into all this stuff, but when repeatedly over and over, can you please provide the death certificate? And it doesn't happen. I mean, people get tired of what they've been doing and they just choose to get on an airplane and take on a different identity. I can't rule it out. So who knows? It's an unsubstantiated rumor.
Pretty hard to hide that hair on Rose's behalf, unless it was a wig.
I'm okay with it, though. I like these kind of conspiracies. I don't
do
rule
we
any
have-
of them out.
Do we have any like other evidence to support the idea that she hasn't passed on?
Just unsubstantiated rumors. Yeah. And the over and over, where is the death certificate that Alaska would have required? What are you going to do? Bury her out back? No, you're going to have a government entity go out to your place and say, we got a cold one here. And they make record of it and they make it available. So, yeah, I'm just saying Nikki Rapana was not the queen bee that she thought she was. Anybody that dared to question got some snotty backlash. I am the queen bee. And yet she would say stuff like, I'm going to be the best communitarian the world has ever had. I'm going to start a school for females to learn how to build shelter with garbage. And she'd wake up in the morning after constructing a little hovel out of 1x2s and no shear strength, no knee brace. The thing falls over the next morning in the snow. There are carpenters that would have said, you want to build a structure? Let's get together in the summertime and we'll come up and we'll do it. But there was this whole man hatred. And, I could list 100 things why things don't move forward smoothly. And yes, we are divided. And it's working against us.
Yeah, well, it's a part of the playbook, isn't it? It's always part of the playbook. Never stops.
Angry feminism is one of the isms in communitarianism.
Yes.
Well, like Jenna,
absolutely.
Like Jenna tried to say, it's all the isms put into the big kahuna-ism.
Well, without judgment, I believe both of the ladies were gay, weren't they not?
Well, Nikki had children.
Rosa was married to a woman.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew Rosa was. Definitely.
It's true.
I wasn't sure about Nikki, but I just got that same vibe from reading her stuff. Yeah.
And both of these gals were pro-communitarian. They were communitarian proponents.
Anti-communitarian, because the communitarians are looking for the one size fits all for the planet and the earth and all resources digitized. So they opposed it. Communitarianism sounds nice. Unity is in there. If you just mention that word, someone would be like, well, that's what I want. It's way better than the right or the left. Well, it's a synthesis. And another example is, our How to Become a Communitarian is a short YouTube offered by the International Intentional Community.
Well, Fellowship for Intentional Communities.
Right. So the idea of one big kibbutz, and we're all in this together, and no matter how much effort you put in, it's all equitable, and I don't know, and no one owns anything. You own nothing, and we're happy. But I do see that through the use of education, because I watched my son growing up in public school, and everything was a group project. This Common Core kind of encouraged no independent thought. It was all, well, if the group doesn't do it, I'm not doing it. And
it's totally molding. It's molding the thinking, isn't it? It's just teaching the children how to think differently.
And it steals from the gratification of having done something yourself. You got to share it.
Sorry.
It's sort of like collectivism. Yeah.
I don't think it's teaching them how to think. I think it's teaching them what to think.
Very true.
Both
go
really.
along to get along.
Well, I mean, anybody that's gone to college, I just say, well, this person hasn't indoctrinated. They are going to play the game. And so trying to get through to them that, there is some serious concerns out here Please, just give me the facts. If not, I'm going to brush it under the rug because it doesn't exist. No one could possibly conspire amongst themselves. And yet Lark, is very fond of this cigar box of the Drapers Guild. And it's a famous Rembrandt. And somebody walks in the door while the people in the drapery business are conspiring about prices. And Rembrandt caught the fact that one of them jumps up. What are you doing here? We're conspiring. All right.
Oh, I also want to add what I noticed. 2008, my son was maybe in second grade, and that's when Digital Citizen just popped on the report card. And, I think this was a precursor to how Common Core just overlapped into the one-size-fits-all schooling. And that, I think, is a perfect example of how they indoctrinated this younger generation now to just do as they're told and believe the group think. And that's disheartening. But I do feel hope in the human nature. I think there's a twinkle in everyone, and those niches in society can be created outside of this monstrosity. There are ways to exercise our creative will and independence to do something that matters. And it value for value, it might not be what makes a lot of money, but a way to carve out a life of your own. I do feel that there is potential for everyone. It just doesn't look good in urban settings. And that is a difficult one because at 85% of most population, of the population, they live in rural in urban settings, and rural areas are not as accessible. But I think having space allows for bigger thoughts, bigger dreams, bigger exercise of personal will, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just the concentration, isn't it? It's the concentration. I mean, you're out and about in the country regions, you're not being hit by all the constant visual pollution of propaganda and signs and advertisements wherever you go. I mean, you can't even go to a club and sit down and have a meal without 6 different screens in front of you, footy, gambling, bloody local soapy. Oh, man, it's just peace is just almost eradicated.
I'll mention one thing too, Brian. You brought up the light rail earlier, talking about that'll be what'll get you in and out of those cities, or your bicycle. My car tabs have been $600-700 a year over the past 4 or 5 years, and my county voted it down, and they decided that they're just going to average my county with King County so that they can pass this tax for the light rail to go through. Our state as a whole voted for like $35 tabs multiple times over the past 10-15 years, I'd say, and it's passed every time, and the government just says, too bad you're not getting those prices.
So can I jump in with a quick question here?
Sure.
Something that you brought up that I thought was really interesting is sort of alluding to some muddy messaging within the truth and liberty community, and some of the people that are upheld as being, voices of independent media, essentially. So I was hoping that you could expound a little bit on that. What do we maybe need to watch out for? So it's very difficult sometimes for us to discern if someone is intentionally muddying a message, or if they're intentionally, supporting some of these things in the background, while professing to be independent and for truth and liberty. So are there things that we can look out for to know and identify these individuals who may be part of the communitarian without us being aware of that?
Well, my response would be, if you spent 2 hours of your life looking into this, and I see in your chat, A Squirrel, that's Jenna here, put up A Lark in Texas's website. If for 2 hours you looked into what our concerns are, and then 3 weeks ago, the Independent Media Alliance, headed by Whitney Webb and Derek Brose, they had a panel and they said, oh, we're really hoping that our guru Patrick Wood can show up. Once you know what this big picture is, you can just spot it everywhere you turn. And Big Perm living in Seattle, good luck looking at even one news broadcast out of Seattle, because, you know, Ma and Pa got robbed in their little corner grocery store. But fortunately, the community is here to make everything wonderful. It's just so in your face. As to Derek Brose, I've been back and forth with him and his intentional community. Ever looked at the wiki? It says right there. And like Jenna said, the Fellowship for Intentional can get you an online course on how to be a communitarian. One of the confusing things, I'm sorry, Keelthor, your Norse name, I'm not real perfect on, but you have been confused, and this has happened so often I can't explain it. Are you for or against communitarianism? It's happened in 10 years to us so many times. It doesn't baffle me. I mean, I can't be the perfect orator of information, but yeah, I would just say it's not what the group think, the hive mind, the herd of James Corbett and Whitney, and if it was going to be just strictly a numbers game, these people are saying we are the end all be all. When you want to get on your knees and praise Allah of information, that would be us. That makes me very suspicious.
Yeah. I also get suspicious when it's join our group, when it's like some sort, even if it's just a digital presence of some sort of ongoing workshops and webinars, it's signing in. I don't know. I'm always leery of that, but intentional communities as a remedy to come join us, and we can do it together. And I haven't had an experience living on an intentional community, but I've heard enough stories that it can be extremely dissatisfying.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jenna,
I put my
So can we-
email address into Derek Brose's outfit. What is that? The
Freedom Cells.
yeah, the Freedom Cells, probably like 8 years ago or so.
Same
And
here.
I've been getting emails like nonstop from them. And when I started seeing all the Fed infiltration into different groups and stuff, I was like, I'm not showing up to this stuff. Next thing I know, I'm end up in jail without representation for the next year. So
that whole thing sounded really suspicious to me from the get-go when I heard about
The Freedom Cells
back
thing,
then.
I joined that, sorry, it wasn't 8 years ago. It was 2025 actually when everything just started, and it was like, I'm just going, oh my God, I've got to find some people. I've got to find a tribe. Obviously you don't put your actual address into those things. I mean, you've got to be a bit insane to do that.
no, I meant
but-
my email address.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But the Freedom Cells required a location at least so that it could, in air quotes, hook you up with other people whatsoever. But I met some great people through that, so I'm not going to say it wasn't completely. I mean, good things come out of everything, really, if you want to use it that way. I was sort of the last one standing on that group the freedom cell thing. As things got back to normal, people just got back to their lives, and as you do. But there was, without going into any details, there was some conflict with the person that I know that was running the freedom cells in Australia. But there was some conflict between her and Derek Brose, and she decided to separate from that whole thing and rename it something else, and sort of not go along his narrative so much. So yeah, I agree with you. There's this whole this is now the new MSN, so to speak. This whole thing has been set up a couple of decades at least before 2020 hit, to be controlled when everyone moved away from MSN. They knew it was going to happen.
Well,
yes, they've got their agents in place. I totally agree.
Didn't Jordan Peterson say we're going to start the ARC, the alternative to the World Economic Forum, or some other such nonsense? You'll have to look into it. I can't describe it further, but I will say that Larkin, Texas is going to be a guest on one of the people on the before mentioned panel of this media alliance, and that would be Geopolitics and Empire. I can't pronounce his name. He's from Croatia. He's been on Johnny Vedmore's show in the UK.
Oh, that's Horovac, is it? Yeah, I can't pronounce his name either.
Yep, that's his first name.
He does the cognitive dissonance with Monica Perez.
Yes, that's him. So anyway, I'm not out to just say all these people have no benefit. I mean, this guy, geopolitics guy, is extremely intelligent, and if he can get along with Johnny Vedmore as a pretty close, long-time associate, I can't dismiss him. He said, he just kind of gave up on attending these anarcho-capitalist gatherings in Mexico, and too expensive, no payback. But it was Courtney Turner and Geopolitics and Empire having a discussion, and they said, are you familiar with Alison McDowell? And they both said, we were trying to promote and encourage them, but they turned on us both. And they said, and the same thing with J.J. Couey. So this infighting is a classic tactical, it is probably all theater, but it is a, tactic of war. They don't want a group. If Jesse Hall is interviewing Alana Freeland 6 months ago, and we type in communitarianism, Alana says, I have heard about it many, many times from some people that we know. That would be Jenna and Brien, because she lives in Olympia here. But I don't know enough about it to talk on it. So Jesse says, well, I can tell you what it is, but I will also warn you that there are these people that will come along and accuse anybody that is heading in the right direction, which Jesse Hall knows is get a community group together and, for the common good. And these anti-communitarians will come along and insist it's every man for themselves, last man standing. So I think 2,000 years ago, our opponent said, we'll wait till 2025 and these people will be getting together to bicker over, is it this side or this side? And that's exactly what Nikki Rapana, in one of her famous interviews, said. What can we do about it? She was asked.
And she's like, the key is just don't pick a side. If you're not fighting, there won't be any conflict. So therefore they would never need to synthesize anything. And we're out. So don't pick sides. Don't fight. Stop fighting.
Okay, so can I just ask you guys then, hear what you're saying. Like we're hearing you saying basically groups are vulnerable to infiltration and cracking eventually. So what is your suggested solutions? Is it just being autonomous, like completely as autonomous as possible? Because it's impossible to be 100% autonomous in this life. At some point, I mean, you still have to pay rates on your land, etc. So what is your solutions, particularly for people who may not even be in a couple situation?
Sure. Well, Brien had a unique career where he was never paid on the books, and he's been able to work through private contract his entire life. Granted, he's not going to have a retirement. However, by doing this sort of work, we've gravitated to, we like being outside. So landscaping, Brian's been an arborist for 40 years. So, and I've always had a garden, and I've always liked helping, drag and brush around, no problem. But the innovation that we've come up with over the past 10 years of taking wood debris, waste, heating it, burning it, and making charcoal, because we understand that as an additive to the garden soil, it promotes fertility. So this has become like a whole nuance to every part of the season of our work, incorporating either making it, harvesting it, curing the stock, and growing food. So this is very satisfying, and it is, some years there's surplus, and it can create more exchange, more trade, meeting more people. Food always brings people together. So do fires.
Sure.
But,
oh, absolutely. That's for sure. Okay, so you've set the scene there, but what can I ask what you would suggest for the people who aren't fortunate enough to have some land or be able to get some land because they just can't afford it or whatever, or don't have skills, or are stuck in their sort of city gridded situation? Have you got anything that you could suggest for these people?
Well, I would like to correct our situation. We don't own this property. So we're like resident caretakers.
We'll have access to. Let me correct myself. Have access to.
And in this world of, there's this top tier of people that have too much, and the bottom tier of people that don't have a little. We can't just assume the top tier are all unapproachable or aren't intelligent enough to understand I need help with my land, and people that don't have land that know what to do could come together. It's just the conversation and the contract that stands in between that happening. There's so much land, and it's like I think we built up our own personal walls of it's them, those richies, or I could never even approach this person to have a conversation on a subject of land management, or even trying, because there's many different layers or levels and of what people can do to trade, is what I have to say. I'm sure Brien has more, so I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I'll correct Jenna. I was in the arborist field, but loggers don't cut down big trees. Fallers do. I do that as well, but loggers move logs, and we have a small sawmill, so we can make lumber, preferably custom orders. Somebody tells me ahead of time the dimensions and species, and I can buck to length and make that happen. I'd love to get behind BigPerm's backdrop and make sure his forest management practices are up to snuff because of wildfire. And, people ignore this in the Puget Sound area, but it has happened. And more realistically, after they creamed the timber here once, they don't clean up. They burn the whole bloody thing. So this is my concern now that the eco-terrorists think that anybody that runs a chainsaw or a tractor is causing global warming, and for that reason, they will believe trees live forever. There's no forest management. You're asking, Stella, what about people that don't have land? Well, I'm saying in the city of Olympia, there's guys using their barbecue due to the fact that there is a no open burning policy law, but they'll make biochar in their barbecue. And we also know some people, they will do a soil analysis so that you can work towards a nutrient balanced soil. You know, I'm 3/4 Irish, so starving revolutionaries haven't done so well. So if you can figure out how to get the proper nutrient, it was Weston A. Price looking at people's teeth all around the world. And when you got to England in World War II, the Germans that had these Brits in their prisoner of war camps said, boy, these Brits' teeth are just shot. What's up? Well, they live on an island and they don't have access to minerals to augment their nutrition. So, yeah, even if you made a coffee can of charcoal, it wouldn't be going into the recycling, which around here you can recycle brush, but it gets mixed with all kinds of poisons,
chemicals,
including this septic sewage that has forever chemicals in it. And you think you're buying some nice topsoil. Hell, you even contributed by bringing them your prunings from your hedge. You end up being in a community of people you wish you weren't. You wished you had been an independent operator and dealt with your own waste material.
So what I'm hearing from the past 20 minutes is that, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, community, the concept community is not evil, but like anything else, you have to use your own judgment to determine who you should form a community with. And the idea of communitarianism that's going to infiltrate our schools and our government and our churches is not the solution, and that is going to cause our own ability to form our own communities independently is going to be squashed. Is that? And in order to try to combat this, we have to essentially do what probably a lot of us are doing that are listening, is to be independent, to be our own landlords and our own community forming things that fight against that, lack of a better phrasing.
So
more
Nikki,
of an agoristic lifestyle.
Agorism would be a good way to describe part of that.
Yeah.
Nikki Rapana would say we can't use the word community anymore. It doesn't belong to us anymore. It's been taken over, and I would agree. Others have said, well, how about tribe? How about
network?
How about there's Bryser in Ireland, did 10 years of broadcasts. Can I use the word clan? That'll work.
Take it back.
But I have a friend who looked into this, and she said, no, I think I'm going to say some of the people that live on my road. Not all of them. I have my select group, and it's the same person. She had a adolescent for boys camp, especially during this lockdown, and these young kids needed to be around each other. Jenna went through this trying to, deny her son the social interaction by homeschooling him. And it completely was a nightmare for Jenna. But returning to this camp, and she's overhearing 12 kids kicking a ball around or something, and she heard this one kid say it twice. If you hear the word community, run away. And I think he'd been through this so many times. We are going to have an apple pressing party.
No, actually, because Galilee was a teacher, she asked this young boy to write out what he thinks the word community means and why it was a negative connotation. And this little boy wrote the letter. She showed it to us. It was like he had experience at a community garden, and other people would take the biggest fruit and leave, or something like that. So he had this impression of what a community garden can be. You work really hard, and then you watch someone take your harvest.
So,
or
go
ahead.
Well, in my brief research on this topic, it occurred to me that communitarianism was like living in a neighborhood with a Karen-filled homeowners association, and you have to live under their rule. And it's everybody's part of it, but it's really just a elite group of elitist homebodies that control everything. And I can't get on board with that.
That's how it works, though, isn't it? It's like the whole concept of the community all keeping an eye on each other and dobbing on each other, and you join these little groups, and then somebody has some power. It's like the Milgram experiment. You give somebody a little bit of power, and it's surprising how far they'll take it. It's just same playbook every time.
I would, but there is also. I absolutely agree. However, as big as this can stretch, also, we can look to the example of the EU. The EU all of a sudden became a key communitarian law governs the EU. And when the CAFTA agreements and the NAFTA agreements forming this North American Union, when nation states go bye-bye, private property will go bye-bye. And that could be something that's happening in the work, especially in the rules. Then, part of our personal property is our own bodies. And as all these things are disassembled, maybe there's a subconscious aspect to it, how there is this takeover and people just submit. So
it's a soft approach, isn't it? They just get people used to it in other realms, and then suddenly those rules then apply to everything else. I mean, Australia, I think, has been a reasonable amount ahead in that sense. I'm sort of starting to realize exactly how much, because some of the things that I hear sort of being talked about now is like, it's been the norm here for 30, 40 years. So, yeah, I'm just sort of seeing all these things roll out, and it's like, well, isn't that normal? I didn't realize it wasn't,
Can I ask Stella whether you're familiar with a Cindy Niles in Australia on Facebook?
I'm not on Facebook, so no. I haven't heard the name, no.
Okay, we'll send along some Niles talks on Rumble, or somebody's posted some of her young blonde, pretty smart, very smart, and she has been very active in resisting this communitarian thing, mostly due to interaction with Larkin, Texas.
You just described Stella.
Well, I think she is wide open to, she needs to find something besides faceplant. That medium is a failed experiment, in my opinion. But, I mean, here we are talking about, let's see. Is it going to be one great big kibbutz of commune, or is it the last independent? there is a predictive programming from a MK Ultra victim CIA agent in 1963 in Oregon, where he was living, wrote a book called Sometimes a Great Notion. So the book was turned into a Hollywood blockbuster with Paul Newman. That story, I believe that Ken Kesey was tasked with, let's do a communitarian primer for the Pacific Northwest. And the book has all of the for the common good, no man is an island. Somehow, Ken Kesey had this premonition that is the whole town going to need to go union because technocracy had improved the logging world to the point where these guys weren't getting the wages or the hours because technology had replaced the, what they call a misery whip, is a 8-foot long handsaw, and oxen. And yeah, I'd highly recommend that, if you had a bunch of listeners that are interested in the subject, they could read that book and do a book review on it and expose that I think my theory is correct. The world needed to be exposed to exactly what we're talking about. Should we be amongst other like-minded, or should we just put up the Seattle stare and why don't you buzz off? And it's no small wonder it happened in Oregon. So I wanted to mention, this is my lifelong dream, is to get they have a Goodreads book review. People get together and they read 100 pages and discuss it for hours. What is going on here? Well, I'm insisting Ken Kesey wanted this to be flushed out. And, I'm pretty sure within a month, anything that I'm about to say will be outlawed and removed. But if there was a community that always looks out for each other, they would stab in the back anybody that would dare to compromise. It would have to be that, kibbutz, commune, creating religious, race, who knows what it is, masquerading.
Gender.
Pardon me? Gender.
Yep, all the things.
Well, I'm talking about what's going on in Palestine right now. Are these people, do they even have DNA of Semitic people, which is a language that the Palestinian people speak? They are Semitics, but when two Christian embassy employees of the Israeli embassy are shot in Washington, D.C., I go right to, just wait till Sunday when all these Christian preachers start preaching it from the pulpit. Now they're killing us Christians that are trying to make, some kind of a compromise in Palestine. Don't you just see that as a planned event to rope in all of these Christian people that listen to their preacher say, let's all get together and support the slaughter? I mean, it's not a war when you get to have sniper rifles, shooting kids that throw rocks. aim for the head or lower, at least you'll hit the torso. This nightmare continues. Had to mention it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought it up. It absolutely is a nightmare and unimaginable for what they are experiencing in Palestine at this time. I truly cannot imagine that. But one thing that I wanted to address is when you were talking about some elements that Rosa Quar had omitted, which was specifically the Zionism piece. Can we talk a little bit about the infiltration or the pushing of the communitarian from the Zionist perspective? So I know that we were talking about Amitai, yes, Amitai,
yes,
that he was from Israel, but I wanted to get a little more information on the Zionist piece of this, because we know that we've heard there's a lot of Zionist infiltration in the government, that they all have an AIPAC handler and things like this, but just wanted to get a little more info from you on that.
Well, sure. I mean, at one point, I was going back and forth with Nikki on Facebook, and she said, because I brought up some, maybe it was about the new model communitarianism. I'm like, Nikki, did you see that Rosa Corey is in this documentary? She's like, she works for Amitai. So I don't know, that was just her comment. She's working for that side by omitting the religious aspects of it. And see, that's where the public shaming and the guilt and the taboo of not mentioning the Jews, Israel, omit it from the conversation, or immediately you'll be tagged an anti-Semite. And I think that even Nikki Rapana avoided that subject because I think she had, someone in her family was Jewish. I think her daughter Nordica, she's like, I'm half Jewish. Of course we can't. It's an uncomfortable subject for us to talk about.
Not only is it uncomfortable, but you just get shut down immediately as well. So I suppose there is a little bit of compromise. You've got to sort of try to wriggle your way around certain things so that you can get at least some of your message out. So exactly. It's a hard one to know. I mean, it's hard to judge who's doing it because they're, controlled, let's say, and who's doing it for self-preservation reasons, weighing up the outcome of, getting a message out without going to. I mean, surely we all know that anti-Semitism itself was created by the ADL originally, from what I believe, the term, so that it was a reason to blame things on that, or to blame things on something. So, thou shalt not be mentioned, etc. Do you happen to know, I heard recently that it is not permitted, or maybe it's illegal, I'm not sure, whatever, for DNA tests in Israel, in other words, because they don't want the true blood to be shown, because a lot of people are saying they're not actually the right ones. It's really hard to talk about this.
I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge that something like
Ashkenaz.
50% of the people in Israel are Ashkenazi Jews, which are European Jews. Yeah. So they're not Semitic people. And the term anti-Semitic is just propaganda anyway, because the Palestinians are Semitic people. So what really should be said is anti-Jew if you want to use anything towards people that have a problem with Jewish people. But what people are questioning is the Israeli government, not the Jewish people. And that's not anti-anything other than anti-policy. If I have a problem with the United States government, I'm not anti-American. I just have a problem with what the government's doing. And I think I could have a problem with any government on the planet except for one, and nobody would call me a name.
There's nothing more American than being an anti-government.
But try to ignore the Christian Zionists that are over half of the United States. Down south, it's an epidemic.
It's definitely grown.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not anti-American, but can you say you are anti-American Christian Zionists? it's basically a conversation stopper, kind of like the last 20 years of my life here, trying to point out that there's this country in the Middle East that was created by the Rothschilds that has no business being there. It's a conversation stopper and a really good way to get labeled really quickly. So they have us by the short hairs, because this is a very powerful tool, and it's being implemented every day. You turn on the news.
I don't turn on the news.
Don't watch the news.
I'll take your word for that.
Don't let yourself only watch the news.
But even the alternative news is almost as bad. Sorry, Keels.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Probably just like during the scamdemic, perseverance is our friend here. And if we stick to our guns, we'll get through this wave of whatever the cultural shift is at this time. And hopefully that stuff will lessen. I don't know, but I don't know what else we can do. You can't fight City Hall, right?
So true.
Well, I'm going to say what we can do is what you people are doing right now, that I just stumbled upon because of, here is Climate Viewer in the chat room.
Shout out, Jimmy.
High five to Jimmy. It is important that we sift through the chaff and come through with the grain that we're going through all this trouble for it, and I like your people's efforts.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's about all we've got, isn't it? Just spread the word and try to bring people into awareness. But even that in itself can create division, because people have to be ready to hear, an addict has to be ready to give up their addiction, and that includes MSM and, sheepthink.
We have to keep talking, keep communicating, keep the channels open, That's how we win, is by spreading the word and trying to encourage people to think on their own and not be just mindless communitarians in the world,
It's astounding, though, when I step out of this little bubble, I realize what a bubble we are all in, because even just asking people out there in the wild, just really basic questions, it's like I'm expecting, they must have heard of this, they must have heard of that. Not a sausage, nothing. It's like, really? You haven't heard of the World Economic Forum?
I asked my wife once, because she's on Facebook and stuff, and she scrolls and whatever, and I said, just out of curiosity, I asked her, hey, had you ever heard of Hunter Biden's laptop? And she had no idea and never heard of it. And I thought that was like such a big thing. She should have surely saw headlines and stuff or something. None of it. And that's like that's just such a lame story, that it's throwaway kind of thing. But I'm just saying.
My dad has an MBA from the University of Washington. He thinks Bill Gates like the greatest person to ever walk the face of the earth, and there's nothing I can do to explain how terrible of a person he is.
I mean, just put him in front of Windows 11, and you'll see the evil he's brought upon the world.
Yeah, I like Windows 11.
So, and the other thing that I wanted to say, sorry, Brian, it's just that, yes, having these conversations, because even I wasn't aware of, I was aware of Rosa Quar, but I wasn't necessarily aware of some of the other nuance that y'all have introduced to the conversation. So it starts to give us a foundation, even those in the liberty movement who are maybe not familiar with this particular angle. We're definitely aware of the social control and the, you will own nothing, but this adds another layer to that information, which I think is really important and gives us a good jumping off point to start looking into a lot of the other stuff and the people and the material that y'all have mentioned and shared with us today.
Okay, well, I'd like to return to the Bill Gates subject. My father passed in his early 90s within the last couple of years. He remarried a woman whose son had a horse farm on Whidbey Island, retired before he was 50. And if I mentioned, Bill Gates, he comes from a eugenicist family background, and I think he's a big plant. Are you joking with me? My father said. Well, my father didn't, because, he's going over to drive the tractor at the horse farm of this guy that retired working for Microsoft before he was 50.
Yeah, I mentioned the eugenicist thing, and that his father was into the eugenics, and he said his father is a respected attorney in Seattle. All right.
Yeah, a lot of them have eugenics in their background, just like that little imp with the plaits. What was her name? The imp. The woman, the little girl that wouldn't go to school. What was her name again?
Oh,
Greta Thunberg.
Oh,
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg.
Her grandfather was a
Greta
eugenicist. And, yeah.
How dare you, Stella?
I think that we also need to be very vigilant in keeping our suspicions up if they feed us that Elon Musk's grandfather was in Canada, the head of technocracy, until Canada threw him out and he went to South Africa, which is in the news, by the way. We start thinking, wow, we've stumbled upon the golden egg. Elon and technocracy is the key that's going to unlock the door. No, they're feeding us these little nuggets so that we think we're the great researchers and have stumbled upon the key that unlocks the door. And it's all by design. We're being played. And you keep bringing up the World Economic Forum. I've been back and forth with this Richard Jeffs, who I think is a Yank living in the UK. He created a film, which is his gig, and it involves stakeholder capitalism. Mm-hmm. And I think he had to move back in with his mother. He is not getting the finances to pay for his efforts and his research linking Klaus to this stakeholder capitalism, but he's insisting. Where could Klaus Schwab have ever mentioned communitarianism? We send him 2 or 3 links and they get removed from his comment section. I feel for these people that have invested a huge amount of time into uncovering this, but realistically, what we need is some deep pockets to say, let's create a film about this C word subject, because it is valid. It does require a lot of explanation. We were 20 minutes into this broadcast and we were still unclear. Are you guys promoting communitarianism? We need to try and flush this out. And Jenna did hire a guy in New York to do some of these short YouTubes to try and appeal to this younger generation. They have about a 4 or 5 minute attention span, and then you've lost them. So these are very short, little, high-quality YouTubes. Jenna reads the transcript, and all of this is available at
on the link that will be in the show notes to Lark's site.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in particular, it's collected musings of
Communitarian collected musings. Yeah, that's going to be
There's a lot of letters in that. I think that's an instant tune out for most people these days too. They haven't got the attention span to finish reading a complicated word.
Yeah, we can put a hot link so they just have to click and not have to type. Maybe that'll work.
And I guess I should mention the Cindy Niles in Australia. She said, Brien and Jenna, can you guys figure out some way to improve this 1970s quality YouTube that Nikki and her daughter Norica put out, Green Virgin, Pachamama, maybe. I can't remember. They put out a little video. So we contacted our buddy PTL Media in New York, and he was between employment, and he did polish it up, because we are all now communication snobs. If I have to adjust the volume, or I can't read the text, or people just trash can it. So we did.
That's right.
It is part of this series that I just mentioned in Lark's site, Collected Musings.
That's so true. Everybody's been very spoiled with high quality productions, etc. And now with all this new sort of do-it-yourself video stuff, it's actually, I'm quite astounded how good some of the videos are from people who have taught themselves how to make videos, etc. Now, sadly, it's moving into the AI realm. So
I wonder.
It's a dead internet. Internet has been for a while.
Yeah, I wonder, some of those people that have these great video editing skills, are they being supported by what corporate entity or bureaucratic organization that is just putting that information out there?
At least a team. Yeah, look, I'm really sus when I see a really schmicko beginning or outro to a video. It's like, you're not sitting there doing this. No, you got a whole team behind you. You got the money. You can tell.
Yeah, they're being funded by something.
Yeah.
All right. Brien and Jenna, do you have any other plugs you want to plug?
I want BigPerm to drive down to Olympia and shake hands. I want to coordinate a biochar burn at the same time. Maybe I could flush out a couple of like-minded people. They said Facebook replaced the campfire. Well, we've replaced the campfire with a biochar burn. And I don't know, we'll figure out some way to park some car that the yearly tabs cost how much?
$600-$700.
Yeah. We'll figure out someplace to park it where it won't get dusty.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, I listened to you guys on Johnny Vedmore, and you went more into biochar. For those of our listeners that aren't familiar with biochar do you want to give a bit more details about what it is?
It's great
Well,
stuff.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we've been making it for quite a long time, because we take down a tree and there's a bunch of brush or all the blackberries. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so it's green everywhere, hacking a lot, just a lot of waste. And instead of just burning it to ash, charcoal can be made high heat conditions, denied of oxygen, create a charcoal substance, just like a charcoal briquette for your barbecue. That's what you make. But the benefits of it, there's a journal, 55 uses by the Biochar Journal, 55 uses of biochar. It's being used as, well, it's called biochar because it's charcoal with a biological focus or application. So we inoculate it in our compost, meaning we add minerals, microbes, and in the compost, the charcoal itself is just like an absorbent sponge because it's void of all its volatiles after it's achieved that high heat. So smashed up and put into the garden soil, when it's inoculated, it holds on to moisture, it holds on to the minerals, and it holds space for microbes to move in. because we want to just build up fertility in the soil. People have been chemical agriculture has depleted the soil. So that's my fascination of understanding soil science has been really fun, because the added benefit is I grow more food. So
so as to the yin and yang, and let's confuse everybody, it does hold moisture. You don't have to water as much.
Yeah.
But it also creates drainage. The mud puddles that would be there in the garden aren't there now, because we've incorporated all these little bits that we run through a garden chipper. After we do a few burns, we make it smaller into little pieces. We incorporate that with the grass clippings and leaves. The nutrients go into the charcoal pores, and we put it in the garden. It drains and holds moisture.
Yeah.
So you're returning the soil back to its original state that it should be in, which is full of microorganisms and biological stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
the goal.
So returning it to its natural state. Yeah.
Less diseases and pests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so make carbon great again.
It's been in use for thousands of years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We saw a great documentary, The Secret of El Dorado, the story of Terra Preta down in the Amazon. It's a BBC little documentary. It's great. They find in the Amazon this like 1 million plus civilization that just got swallowed by the jungle. They disappeared, but the remains left showed that they were utilizing charcoal for their agriculture to feed 1 million people, and it was thriving at one point. So it's a great documentary, and that kind of got us interested. But no matter what, we're always dealing with brush and waste, so making it into a commodity is like the next step.
It could be a replacement for the petrodollar that is being possibly phased out. You could barter and trade a pickup truck that a half dozen kids could make, and there's some rototiller collecting dust from some widow husband, it's rototiller, and they end up trading. Let's get on this, folks. It is doable. But in closing, and I just wanted to, I mentioned Cindy Niles twice. Well, here's number 3. She was all jazzed about biochar. You mean I can make it in my wood stove and feed my chickens? Hell yes. Mum's the word. You want to know why? It's one of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's written in them. And, it's the few amazing people on this planet like Jim Lee that says, what you guys are doing is nothing attached to this. And yet we get attacked. Oh, you guys are creating graphene. Don't you know that's biodigital convergence? It's hats off to Jimmy Lee one more time.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Cindy Niles, that you can't share it with your flock, but we need to polish up our game here. So, end of rant.
Very good.
Well, Brien and Jenna, I'd love to go down and meet you at Old School Pizza for a slice sometime, because whenever I go to Olympia, I need to grab a slice there. I don't eat pizza very often, but they have some great food there. So I'd love to shake your hands and chat.
We got Big Perm, man on the scene out there.
Well,
in the Pacific
I had in mind. I had in mind getting you on the green chain on the sawmill. Jenna is a seamstress. She runs a lot of sewing machines. Well, I just introduced her to this big sewing machine. She dials in the numbers and pushes the levers, and I put stuff on and off the sawmill, and the green chain is the heavy end of the lifting boards, BigPerm.
Well, we gotta get that recorded, that meeting. Well, we'll make a show out of it.
Yeah, do a
Like
live biochar burn.
A docudrama starring.
Yeah. Oh
starring
gosh,
you guys.
we did. Our friend in New York did. He. I took all of these GoPro videos of a day of us making char. It took about 5 hours, and he put it into a half-hour film. And I'll send you the link. You can put it in the notes.
That's great. That's great. You know what? I bet we could do a whole show just about biochar and its history and everything. But I think we're coming up onto the hard break here. We're about an hour and a half in there. But any final plugs anybody wants to put in here? Perm, Stella, Ashley.
The only thing I wanted to say is that we've been keeping up with a lot of the references that Brien and Jenna have talked to us about. So we're going to try to get those in the show notes. And I just wondered if there was a way that people can contact y'all if they have questions or want to have you on their show, or how do they do that?
Wow.
Telephone or email.
Telephone or email.
Okay.
So yeah, our email, idyupdate@yahoo.com. And should we give our telephone number out? Yeah, our telephone number is 360-570-0923.
Great.
Transparency.
Stella.
Speaking of transparency, I'm just going to also give a shout out to climateviewer.com. That is Jim Lee's site. If you go to connect.climateviewer.com, you can connect with him in every way possible and all his immaculate websites. Also, a show that I do on StellaQ Australia channel called Weather or Not. That is with Jeff, our resident meteorological guy. We pull bits and pieces of events apart and try to make sense of some of the nonsense that's floating around out there in disinformation land. Over to you, Perm or Ashley.
Perm, anything you want to plug?
Hey, you guys are my only fun, so this is all I ever plug. I'm happy to be here and happy that we had a guest. We don't do guests very often, and I'm glad you guys reached out. So it was a great episode.
I have a plug for Jim Lee. He said, Brien, I keep my word. I will have you and Larkin, Texas, and Jenna on because I am fascinated with an article called The Anatomy of Slave Speak. And I think technocracy, communitarianism, I want to flush out. So, yeah, he's in the contrail, chemtrail language and how they're working it against us. But ditto, Jim Lee is realizing these two words, and clearly you can't implement communitarianism and that form of global governance without the technology.
That's right.
So they are related. It's not either or. End of rant.
All it takes is one EMF and it's game over for these dudes, really. I mean, there could be a good side to it.
Buy physical media. That's my motto. Buy physical media.
Buy some old books.
All right, guys.
Preferably pre-1945.
Thank you. I want to give big thanks to our guests, Brien and Jenna. They've brought us a whole ton of information for us to disseminate in our brains here and to spread around. I want to thank Ashley and Stella and BigPerm for your insights and questions as well. Speaking of plugs, though, Ashley, how can listeners of the Union of the Unknowns get in touch with the Union of the Unknowns?
Well, Keel, I'm glad you asked. They can find us at theunionofthéunknowns.com. That is our Linktree page that has all the myriad ways to get in touch with us, including Discord, email, voicemail line, and Twitter handles. And we would love to hear from you. Back to you, Keel.
Thank you, Ashley. I want to thank you, everybody. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers, our viewers live. We've got live viewers right now. Everybody who's going to be listening to this tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow. We'll probably post it next week or something, but it'll be out. And years from now, when this is, everybody's gathered around their podcasting radio boxes, listening to our show 100 years from now, we want to thank them as well. We are the Union of the Unknowns, and we are out.
Yeah.